Hello, everybody, and welcome to Madden and Benz Unfiltered. What feels like, well, I guess it is, almost 24 hours after a Steelers win in Ireland. The time change, I think, is still screwing me up today. Didn't screw up the Steelers enough to lose. Where they got screwed up was towards the end of the game. We're going to talk about all of it here on Madden and Benz Unfiltered. Myself, Tim Benz, and Mark Madden from 105.9 The X and Trib Live. We're brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. Go to Mike's before the next Steelers game. That's after the bye. They've got a game against Cleveland coming up at home, their first game in October. Be there 2 weeks from now. 500 beers on tap. Hopefully you turned out there for their big breakfast special yesterday in advance of the game against the Vikings in Ireland. Meet me at Mike's. If you did, you saw the Steelers win by a field goal in a game that actually, Mark, they dominated for 50 minutes. They were the better team for 50 minutes. And then somehow we were biting our fingernails to the nub at the end. How'd that happen?
Well, no, it's not somehow. It's that going into the game, we all thought Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings coach, was going to outcoach Mike Tomlin. And he did, by default. Tomlin mangled down the stretch. You know, he lived in his fears. He punted when he should have gone for it. He let the quarterback overrule him and bypass the field goal that would have made the margin safer. And he's not the only bad coach in the NFL. In fact, I dare say most of them are just terrible. I watched that Green Bay-Dallas game last night. It was like a symphony of bad coaching, just bad decision after bad decision, or should I say, safe decision after safe decision. Every coach in this league, Tomlin not least, is scared to death to be excoriated for a mistake. So they always do what's safe, except when it's not, and it's nonsensical in the case of some of Tomlin's decisions. But coaching poorly is epidemic across the NFL.
Well, that's a good point because everybody, whether it's a basketball coach, baseball manager, hockey coach, football coach, everybody's a slave to the numbers. And if something goes wrong because you followed the numbers, then there's safety in, well, the analytics say ... Well, the analytics aren't foolproof, and sometimes you're a fool for following them. Where I will blame Tomlin is not so much going for it on the fourth down near the goal line, where a field goal would have turned it from a 10-point game into a 13-point game. Well, I think it's a little overcooked. I think there's some merit to what Greg Olsen said, who, by the way, I thought might have been the best guy in Ireland yesterday. I thought he had a great game, the color commentator on the Fox broadcast. He said you don't necessarily want to take a 2-point lead and just make it a little bit more of a 2-point lead here. You want to put the game away. Okay, I can understand that, but there is a difference between a touchdown and a field goal. If he's going to go for it, though, try to score the touchdown. What he did was he ostensibly erred on the side of a 3-yard pooch punt by running Kenneth Gainwell 3 yards on 4th and 3. If you're going to go for the touchdown, give it to your Hall of Fame quarterback who's been great in the red zone so far this year and give him options.
I couldn't agree more. And might I add that going for it there and then punting on the 4th and 1 is directly contradictory. It shows no consistency of thought or approach.
And then when you get to the punt, they seemed haphazard in what they were going to do. I mean, if you're pretty sure you're going to...
But it wasn't haphazard. They kicked it to Belfast.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that part of it. But if you're going to set up, you've got to have sort of a 4-down plan in mind. And I don't feel like they did. Because if you're going to play it that conservatively, odds are you're probably going to need the 4th snap. And they seem surprised that they got to the 4th snap. They got to the line of scrimmage with 2 seconds left with 1 hard count for Rodgers, and that was it. If that was the plan, the Vikings didn't fall for it. It didn't feel like a plan to me. And if Waitman was told to do that, I don't know why he was told to do that because, again, going back to the field position game, all you're doing is sacrificing a chance to end the game for 20 yards because it's going to be a touchback. You started at the 40. Even I can do that math.
Well, and the other flaw in his coaching is he keeps turning the game over to the defense. And the defense is prospering via sacks and takeaways, splash plays, but it can't stop nobody. Like, I can't believe that Peyton Wilson caught Jordan Addison from behind, by the way. What a run that was. But how does Addison get behind your defense that easily and with that much space, between him and the nearest defender that late in that situation? It just, again, he's not a good coach. And the 3-1 record conceals that, but he's not a good coach.
I want to go back to the coaching thing that you brought up, talking about the mismatch that we were discussing late in the week. I would say spurned on by our good friend Ben Roethlisberger. Well, you're a good friend, Ben Roethlisberger, Mark, for his podcast.
My former neighbor, correct.
I loved his delivery on that.
Some really good-looking woman lives where he used to now, by the way.
Oh, really? And you don't know who it is?
No. She's very attractive.
So he says he does this whole thing like, would it be controversial if I said that they might get out-coached in Ireland? No, Ben, that's not going to make any headlines when you say your former coach that you won a Super Bowl with is going to get out-coached by some guy who's never won a playoff game and a guy they let go off their coaching staff. No one's going to pay any attention to that. But,
well, Tim, I'm just glad for the sake of the Rooney family that the Steelers won. It is now time to give Ireland back to the Irish.
I thought about that conversation, though, about who's going to get out coached from a schemey thing, from an X and O thing, where it manifested was in a clock management thing, where there shouldn't be that decided of an advantage.
Where it really manifests itself is an overall approach. And to that, you can apply the word haphazard.
Yeah. The haphazard approach was in their thinking and their delivery of what they planned to do. Like the haphazard approach was...
I don't think they plan at all. I don't think they ever think beyond the next snap.
Let's get to the good stuff, Mark. I'll briefly talk about this one, then go big picture. But before it jumps out of my head, you talked about the Peyton Wilson play. That was a potential game saver because it saved 3 snaps. 3 snaps came for the Vikings, the goal line situation. The Steelers got it to 4th down. That might have been enough for the win going back and looking at it because of all the time that came off the clock as a result.
Although might I say, by way of skepticism, if Peyton Wilson could run that fast, why didn't he cover him in the first place?
Well, it wasn't his guy, was it? He came from across the field.
I don't care. You're that fast. Go pick somebody up.
So he's running 24 miles an hour. I was impressed that DK was running 21 miles an hour on his touchdown run. But then I found out that Isaiah Rodgers guy who caught it, was that who it was? The Isaiah Rodgers guy that had the 2 turnovers the week before against Cincinnati. He was running 23 miles an hour. DK's slow. That's what I've learned from this, Mark.
Well, all I know is O'Neal Cruz runs faster than all of them, and he batted 200.
Yeah, and then Corliss Waitman, O'Neal Cruz, a shot out of the back of the end zone of the punt, which I'll never understand. But the other,
I think Cruz does. I find it hilarious that he batted exactly 200. Like no rounding up or down, exactly on the Mendoza line.
It just gave us something easy to remember all off season when we're talking about him, and the Pirates media and fan base is trying to pump him up, and this is going to be his year. You watch, this is going to be his year.
He's going to be worse next year, Tim, because he's going to go to arbitration, get a low figure, and have the boo-boo face all year.
He's just going to be pouty about it, you think?
Yeah, he thinks this is his time to earn, and when it doesn't come through like he thinks, he'll be upset.
Well, we'll get to the demise of the Pirates season a little bit later on, but the other guy who made a huge play.
I think we just summed the whole thing up.
The other guy's going to did make a huge play was Deshaun Elliott. And I'm not talking about the PBU at the end of the game. That was big. The interception was big. Big assist to Derek Harmon for tipping that pass. They've gotten really good at that along the defensive line. But Elliott's tackle of Mason, it's not often you talk about a 4th and 1 that goes for 9 yards. It's an important play for the defense. Elliott pulls him down by the ankle. If not, Mason's gone. Touchdown. Changes the complexion of the game. 3 plays later, on 3rd down, he gets an interception. Their 3rd down play was significantly better than the Patriots game. Not only did they stop the Vikings on, I think it was 10 of 14 tries on 3rd down, might have been 11 by the end of the game, but on those 3rd downs, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions. So they made big plays on 3rd downs too.
Yeah, well, that's what they are, Tim. They're a big play defense, but still a vulnerable defense.
Yes, they give up.
And you're 100% right about Elliott, but it shouldn't come to that.
Yeah, they force themselves into big play situations because the plays get bigger as the yardage gets shorter.
I got to tell you, one thing that I laugh at is like some of these stooge Steeler media types, guys who will never make a dime or an impact in our city, Tim. They go on Twitter last night. I should name the guy's name. He's a dimwit. Says, where are all the people who said TJ Watt stunk the first 2 games? And I said, I'm right here because he stunk the first 2 games. Playing good later don't mean you played good then and we were wrong.
Yeah, especially like look at the 2-6 season where they ended up 8-8, missed the playoffs. Those 2-6, those 8 games counted before they turned it around when Watt came back. So, like you can't erase the past because
it's the same thing with the Pirates. Like I wrote that column, Skeens is a pitcher like a phenom. You know why? Because he wasn't pitching like a phenom. And then when he starts pitching like a phenom, I hear, where are you now, fat ass? He's pitching like a phenom. Well, yeah, he is now, but the column was right at the time.
Yeah, how do
and
you
the
like
Pirates still finished? I want all you Pirate fans, I'm going to put my eyes real close. You finished last. You finished 5 games worse, despite having the first full season of the best pitcher in baseball. You finished last.
That under 76 win total, cha-ching, came in yesterday, hit the bank account. Oh, it felt so good to see that money come in.
Yeah, and it's not going to get no better, Tim, so double down next year.
Yeah, I might do that. I wonder where they'll set the total next year. It'll be inflated. It might be back around 76 again because people are just going to talk themselves into, like, what, Skeen's going to pitch every day? Bubba Chandler's going to be for real? Whoever the Tommy Pham of the year is will make a real difference this time? Come on.
I think they should take Tommy. Is Tommy Pham? No, Tommy Pham's way past his arbitration, right?
Yeah, he's just a free agent.
I wish he could go to arbitration so he could beat up the arbitrator.
He'll be like that guy who's in the meme on Twitter that jumps at the judge when he doesn't get the decision that he wants.
like we talked about on the podcast, the best arbitration story ever is Sean Casey. Where the Reds are ripping him apart, and at first he goes, I got mad, and then I think, wow, maybe I do stink.
Well, that was also the one that he tells the story about where his wife gave him a sport jacket that the cat had peed on. Did you ever hear that story from him?
For arbitration.
For arbitration, he's like, this jacket stinks. It turns out that the cat had taken a pee on it before he got the jacket for arbitration. His wife gave him the wrong coat.
Sean's ex bought a house on the shoreline of Conneaut Lake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with his money. and here's the sad part, Tim. It's one of the few houses right on the lake I could have afforded.
So you could have bought it for Sean so his ex-wife didn't get it first.
No, I would have bought it for me and let Sean visit. but I mean, like, it was like, I'm going, God, what the hell?
The ex-Mrs. Casey rental property of Mark Madden. I like it. I like the concept.
Maybe she'll let me do Airbnb.
Yeah, Mark Madden, Airbnb slumlord. That's a fantastic idea.
That is a fantastic idea.
Let's get to the Penguins, Mark, because we got some questions coming in on that. We'll circle back to the Steelers when we get to our Q&A here. There's quite a few that have come in, but I know you made the decision last minute to end up going to the Marc-Andre Fleury game, the farewell game on Saturday night. What'd you think of the festivities?
Yeah, I saw Schenker 3 times in 1 week, 4 times this month. That was plenty. He was great, the former UFO guitar player. But, yeah, the Fleury thing was great. And like I wrote in a column I just submitted to the Trib, Tim, that's normally the kind of thing I hate. Very carny and hokey, and it was a money grab. They sold out an exhibition game at inflated prices,
right.
But it was great because it was Flower, and he deserved it, and he was gracious, and him playing was tremendous. They played their best defensive period of the year. The chants were tremendous. The fans were popping whenever he played a dump in. Columbus's goalie, Marslickins, made a puck handling error to gift Koivunen a goal, which I felt was a tribute to Fleury's puck handling. It just could not have been better. I normally hate stuff like that. This was perfect. And his family, all that reflected love, that his kids got, it was just wonderful.
I want to clarify something because you did this in the podcast. I just want to make sure everybody understands your point here. When you say they played their best defensive period of the year, you're not talking about the 4 preseason games. You're saying that's going to be their best defensive period of this entire year.
And that's exactly what I'm saying, Tim. They were blocking shots in an exhibition game. Tim, here's how extreme it was. At one point, I saw Erik Karlsson make the right play.
Well, there you go. That's all you need to know. He was so glued in that he actually cared about the result of where the puck went, huh? Not a power play, too.
Yeah, it was delightful. The whole thing was great.
I wasn't there. I was up at 5 a.m. for a football game. I called the Duquesne game. I had to be up at 5 a.m. again the next day to get on the air for Channel 4 in advance of the Ireland pregame show. So I just didn't have
the Duquesne game.
Well, I just had to get up early because I can't get around on my knee right now. So everything everything takes a lot longer to get showered, to get driven, all that sort of stuff. So I just couldn't get over to the Fleury game. I really wanted to. I will say this, though. It gave me some time to watch Penn State and fall asleep at halftime because what happened in the first half caused them the game in the second half, I think. We can talk about that a little bit more, the overtimes, all that. But between them and Pitt, Mark, wow, what a couple of gut punches.
Well, that's the kind of game at Creepy Valley with the whiteout and all the emotion, you got to put away early. Not that Oregon's an opponent you can easily defeat, no matter what the circumstance or location. But the fact that they dragged that game out, it felt like it swung to Oregon more and more. And the Pitt thing, I mean, the coach is terrible. That's the sum and substance of Pitt football.
It is kind of funny.
Terrible, and the quarterback's terrible too. Remember, we thought, "Oh my God, I hope Eli Holstein stays a few more years before he goes to the NFL draft." Tim, he'll be lucky if he's a backup in the UFL by the time his Pitt career is over.
You know, it is kind of funny. Those are two completely different games, yet they're so totally representative of the two coaches, aren't they?
Yep. And the programs, really.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, those were two such consistent games for how those teams are stuck where they're stuck, but the levels of where they're stuck, there's a seismic gap between the two, and yet the consternation within each individual fan base is quite similar.
Well, the Penn State dilemma is really intriguing.
Yeah.
I still think even with 2 losses, they probably get in the postseason, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say they lose to Ohio State and they finish with 2 losses, make the postseason. Penn State has to decide if doing that all the time but never beating the big teams is good enough. Because financially, Tim, it's good enough. And what if the next guy you bring in can't even do that? So it's tough to decide what they really should do moving forward. And I'm being serious. I know the Penn State, you got to go for it. Okay, it's not that simple. What if the next guy isn't as good?
It's almost like I've heard this argument about another coach and somewhat in the same region. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Tomlin, for sure. Tomlin is disguised, though. Well, no, you're right. They both have that, like, artificial, minimal, acceptable level that in Tomlin's case, everybody buys into with the no losing seasons. I'm not so sure they buy into it with Franklin to that degree.
The other thing is, like, you know.
In fact, I know they don't. I know Penn State fans are mad about his record against the good teams.
There is a little bit of a difference in the who you're going to get thing. Like, because if you look at the Steelers, I always bristle at the who you're going to get if you move on from Tomlin argument, because they moved on from Noel. They moved on to Noel. They moved on from Cowher to Tomlin. You know, like, who was Noel? Who was Cowher? Who was Tomlin? No one ever heard of those 3 guys. I don't know if it's quite as applicable to college because of the recruiting aspect of it.
I think it's applicable. Well, you're right. The recruiting. Then again, the recruiting's done by money now, which makes
it's a little
totally different story.
It does narrow the frame a little bit.
The Franklin thing, I mean, I'm not sure they would get better than Franklin. With Tomlin, I think they would, just because he's no good.
You have to make decisions with the money, though. If your money's going to be allocated, do you want this quarterback or that quarterback? Do you want this corner? Do you want that lineman? You know, that sort of thing.
Tim, I'm not happy with any of the Pittsburgh teams right now. I want to get back to one Penguins thing. This roster is going to finish 22nd or 23rd overall.
Just good enough to drive you crazy is what you're saying.
No. I want them to finish dead last.
Well, that's what I mean. This roster is going to win just enough games.
This team is built on getting high draft picks every once in a while. And now it seems like, Kyle Dubas heard his master's voice when Pat Brisson, said about, Sid, a trade's always a possibility. And he's keeping a team together that won't finish high enough to make the playoffs, but won't finish low enough to get a pick they need.
That's going to be a dilemma all year, and it's going to be interesting to track how some of the top picks. I think let me say this to Penguins fans. We're following college football, at least we did for the first couple weekends before we got frustrated with it, based on who the next great quarterback is going to be and how easy it's going to be for the Steelers to get him. Well, that guy is yet to emerge through the first month. Watch junior, watch college, watch European, just track the draft charts, Penguins fans, because a lot of that is going to come into play as we approach who's going to be picked by the Penguins this summer.
I think the Penguins should pick Drew Aller.
Would he be more of a defenseman or a wing, do you think?
You know what's weird about Drew Aller? I think he's going to be a better pro quarterback than college if he goes someplace where he's not in a fistball. And boy, that's a common thread in every sport now. Some guys are cut out for the fistball, some guys are not. Like, I think Mitch Marner, as good as he was in Toronto, is going to be like a 110-point guy in Vegas because they have the personnel to facilitate him being a point producer. But even though the team's really popular, it's not really covered in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? There's no real pressure. It's like Carolina. Carolina is going to sign 2 of the Hockey Canada kids that got acquitted in that sexual assault case, right? They're gonna sign Carter Hart in goal, I think. And that McLeod kid is the third-line center, who's a very good third-line center. You know why they can do that, Tim? Nobody cares. They don't cover the team in Columbus. There's no media pressure. What are you doing?
Wait, did you say Columbus or Carolina?
Carolina, I mean, correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Carolina. And that's why they're going to sign him. There is such a disparity now between the fishbowl life in some cities and not in others, a bigger disparity than ever. I don't know if I went off on a tangent there, but I think it's an interesting one. I'll give you an example. If I were an NHL player and I wanted to play for a team where the pressure was minimal, I would subscribe to The Athletic. Then I would play for one of the teams The Athletic doesn't cover. There are a lot of teams they don't even cover. They don't cover Carolina. There's no Carolina beat reporter. And when you figure that out, you can figure out where the fishbowl is not.
Well, Mark, I mean, we don't have to go much beyond Pittsburgh to really dwell on this conversation because you and I made the same point about Trevor Bauer with the Pirates. That's why it would have been so easy for them to sign him here.
And they still should have.
John says about the Fleury night, playing the third period, the shootout, Mark's chant with Flower after the game, or Mark's chat with Flower after the game. He just wanted to wrap up of what you thought happened. We touched on some of that. I didn't know that they started chanting goalie fight, goalie fight. How close did that come to happening? They couldn't talk Merzlikins into it? Or was he not even in the net by then?
They couldn't really get the chant going.
Oh, they didn't?
Although, and I chatted very briefly with Flower, like me, Yoey, and somebody else stuck around for a few extra minutes. It's like, here's the thing, though. I know it's not going to be the last time I see him. He's going to come back to retire his number. He's going to come back for Stanley Cup reunions. I'm sure he's going to come back for the Lemieux Fantasy Camp. He's a natural for that, right?
Oh, he'll be back later this year. I mean, you look at the, what do you call it? The promotional calendar. They've got 2 different nights already on the calendar for the 16 team, and then next year is the 17 team. He'll be back all the time.
You have to say goodbye to the same guy.
Calvin says we were all having a great morning until Mike Tomlin needed to start making decisions. The Steelers are lucky to walk away with a win.
But they did walk away with the win. And it's funny, at certain points in the season, you could say a win's a win and it doesn't ring true. Like last week. I thought they were real bad last week and lucky to get away with it. But Minnesota, they played okay early, especially real good first half. And 3-1 is important. 3-1, they should beat Cleveland 4-1. Burrow's out 5-1. And from then on, once again, they can make every game meaningful, Tim. The Steelers will not play a meaningless game in 2025. Praise be to Jeebus.
Mike says the Steelers are a terrible 3-1 team. Do you think they're terrible, or do you think that's what 3-1 is in the NFL these days? Look at the AFC, Mike, that they're not that dissimilar from other teams who are still going to be in that wild card hunt, or even in some division races.
Well, especially when the Baltimoreans are so terrible on defense. They might be in legit trouble at 1-3. I mean, maybe to win the AFC North this year, all you got to be is the prettiest girl in the ugly contest.
I still think they make the playoffs, though.
Probably, but if your big goal this year is to win a playoff game, the Steelers need to win the division. That would afford them by far the best chance.
If Lamar's out for like 6 weeks with a hamstring, I don't think he will be, but that's a game changer. But even if it's just a week, maybe they'll get him back centered on how to run the ball with Henry. I don't know, but like you said,
hey, I know Calvin Austin's out with the shoulder. Is Ramsey out now?
There was a report from I don't remember where I saw it. Somebody said that it was Dulac from the Steeler Radio Network.
Right.
He said that both might be out a couple of weeks.
What's wrong with Ramsey?
That hammy, which was weird. It was like,
well, but he faked the hamstring injury on that celebration when the scoop and score got called back,
and then he grittied. Yeah,
he faked the hamstring injury. So you know what? Justice. You reap what you sow, Mr. Ramsey.
Mike also wants to know why there was a shootout when the Pens won 4-1. Well, that was pre-planned. That was for Fleury. That was
right,
staged.
You know what? They should not have announced the shootout. Once Fleury played the shutout third period, they should have just quietly scrapped it. They should have only done the shootout if Fleury lost in the third period.
Yeah, but they wanted to keep people in the building, though.
What? Well, no, but Fleury's going to play the third period regardless.
I guess. I mean, yeah.
I mean, you don't need to keep him in for 9 more minutes.
It is the Penguins beat the traffic crowd, Mark. That's all I'm thinking.
It's hilarious that he lost the shootout when that was such a big talent. I think he might be the best shootout goalie ever.
Michael says, can we finally agree that we have a coaching problem? And by that, I mean this fish rots from the head. Tomlin did everything he could to lose that game.
Yeah, but he won. He won. They don't think there's a problem even when they're losing. They're certainly not going to think there's a problem when they're 3-1.
This is Jay who says, we tanked correctly. I don't know who the we is because he's saying that the Penguins are striving for a 10th overall selection in the McKenna draft. I don't know who he's talking about, unless you're talking about the Pirates tanking correctly.
Tim, I'm not kidding when I say this, and I may write a column about it. Kyle Dubas should sit down with Eddie Johnston and say, okay, how do I do this? I'm not kidding.
Send down Miroshov if they bring him up and he plays well?
EJ Morshoff won't. I don't think he'll play with the team this year except for a cup of coffee. But let me tell you, he is the real. Harrison Brunick is the real. Those are stars. Those are a top pair defenseman and a top 5 goalie in this league. Write that down. You heard it here.
Well, you know what, Mark? You made that comment. I was listening back to the podcast, and you said, who would you scratch? Would you actually scratch the likes of Dumba or Carlson or Letang on the right side because that's where Brunick's going to play? And my response is, yeah, I'd scratch Carlson because maybe that'll piss him off enough that he wants to be traded to just about anywhere.
Well, Brunick's a difficult situation. I asked Dan Muse about it yesterday, and he totally danced around and said, well, we have a lot of decisions to make, which means he fits right in as Penguins coach. But Brunick has to go back to juniors because that antiquated agreement with Canadian junior hockey, right? So he will not improve in junior. In fact, he might get worse. He's outgrown junior. So you keep him in the NHL or do you send him back? I don't know. You should be able to send him to the AHL, but they can't. So it's a tougher decision with him than with Morshoff.
But you know what, Mark? One of those
looks like physically Fleury. Like he's just that
little shorter.
He's just like that wiry ball of muscle. Like he's a real athlete. And Fleury's the best athlete I've ever seen play goal in the league. And Morshoff has the look of that.
The one thing about Brunick is somebody's going to get hurt on that blue line. Like, one of the three of them will go down. There'll always be a spot.
But you can't call him up.
You'd have to keep him up, right? Yes.
You can keep him up for 9 games and then send him back. But if you keep him past 9 games, he has to stay here for the entire season. Like, these rules are just stupid. I don't see the need to prop up Canadian junior hockey. Okay, you know who would play wherever Brunick's playing, some forlorn Western Canada town? You know who would take his place there if he didn't play, Tim?
Some other forlorn Canadian in a Western
Somebody
town.
Else. Okay, it's just not that big a deal. They're not selling names. They're selling the brand, the logo, the night out for hockey in the small town. So I don't get why that rule exists. It's an awful rule.
Let's get to 2 more. Alex says, thoughts on Tomlin saying we prefer to die with our boots on. I believe his 4th down decision-making was dismal and nearly cost the Steelers the game. Yeah, that mixed metaphor of his has never been so obvious. Preferring to die with our boots on, then you go for it on 4th down and the successive punt. That was Mark's point before about being incongruent thinking.
When did he say that?
Post-game, last question.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Tom says the first Steelers throw over the middle, which feels like the first one in 5 years, goes for a touchdown to DK. To my point about the job that Greg Olsen did, I thought he was, where he was really good, Mark, was telling us when Rodgers was making the decisions. Like on that first touchdown drive that the Steelers had, he was pointing out of the 9 plays, like 4 or 5 of them were him getting the line of scrimmage in a run look and taking the option of going to a pass. And then he was talking about how that play with DK, he was the one that pointed out that the motion man, I think it was Skoranek, went behind the formation. Defensive back follows him. Open space behind the linebacker. Perfect opportunity for the square in that was called. Like, that's good analysis. That helps you understand why a play happened.
My analysis is I hate the offense. I think Rodgers does a good job keeping things buttoned up, but if you take out that 80-yard catch and one with Metcalf, he threw for 120 yards, which is nothing. He's become a game manager. I thought Gainwell was great. I think he should be the starter.
Yeah, we talked about that. We haven't talked about it here.
Back.
Yeah.
And I think Herbig should play at a Highsmith, but that's not offense. I mean, I just hate the offense. There's nothing about it I like. And how about Freiermuth playing 15 snaps? Jonnu playing 16 snaps? Mount Washington's the starter. And as with Muth before him, Tim, just as the fans liked Muth because they could yell Muth, the fans love Washington because he's Mount Washington. They don't know if he's good, bad, or indifferent. They just like saying Mount Washington.
And now we're going to want Connor Hayward to do the tush push all the time.
Connor Hayward got more snaps than Jonnu or Freiermuth.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear what the matchup suggestion was for that against Minnesota. And by the way, one thing we've glossed over it here, but in the weeks, now 2 weeks worth of analysis before they play again, we have to remember 3 backup linemen for Minnesota, and the Steelers had 6 sacks. That was part of the issue.
Well, that's okay. It's not like the Steelers didn't have some guys hurt as well.
In the secondary, yeah.
Again, this offense.
And that's how Wentz got 350 yards. There you go.
This offense, though, I mean, it was supposed to be based on the tight ends. Now they're disappearing. I assume, and I'm going to ask Matt Williamson about this, I'm assuming Mount Washington's in there so much to help with the blocking, which means you're sacrificing a weapon because your tackles stink.
And I will say the tackles were better. It was the interior of the offensive line that was the issue in pass protection this time.
Well, again, the fans in the media, the Stooges, they over-romance guys. Okay, like Zach Frazier, he's the lovable corncob pipe smoking hillbilly from Bunktussle, so they think he's great. Maybe he's not.
Mark, you're in all week, right? No Michael Schenker, no Motley Crue, nothing like that?
No, I am here now for 3 weeks until Liverpool hosting Manchester United at Anfield. I'll be there in the middle of the month. Still upset about
How are
Liverpool.
you going to miss the Thursday night clash in Cincinnati, Mark? Isn't that going to drive you crazy?
That's specifically why I'm going then. And I'm upset that Liverpool allowed a late goal to lose their first game of the year to Crystal Palace. But still, 5 wins, 1 loss, top of the league. I should be happy.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us. We are back.
Although every team I support, I always think they can go undefeated till they lose.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Same thing for the Penguins. Good thing you'll just have to wait 1 game then, probably for the regular
season.
They're
like 5-0. I'm thinking, wow, 38-0, never been done. And then when it's 1-1 late, you're thinking, well, only one team's ever gone undefeated. Maybe, crap, they scored.
Mark is back on the air today and throughout the week. We are back here, even though it's a bye. We'll be back here next week for Madden Benz Unfiltered as usual and Mad Money. The podcast is up from the Fans First Network, brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. Meet me at Mike's.